If you never want to worry about having to be poor again, there are 5 things that you need to do. Now stick with me because this isn't one of those woo-woo videos that says all you need to do is manifest on money or do these simple things and $10,000 are going to hit your bank account. That's not what this is about. If you really want to never have to worry about being poor again, there are 5 strategic things you need to do. They're not easy, but if you stick with me through this video, you'll understand exactly what I mean. Because the very first thing that you need to do is you got to say these 5 words, not a woo-woo thing. You got to listen to me. You got to say these 5 words and believe them, which are I am responsible for me. I am responsible for me. And you have to understand this because if you want to get out of whatever financial situation it is so easy to point fingers at somebody else. It's because my boss isn't paying me enough. It's because the government is screwing me over. It's because big banks are screwing me over. It's because of corporations. It's because of inflation. It's because of whatever. And you can point fingers all day and night long, but let me tell you something. You can point fingers, but it doesn't actually fix your financial situation. So if your goal is to not have to worry about money again, if your goal is to not to be poor anymore, if your goal is not to be broke, you got to stop pointing fingers because let me tell you something. Those pointing fingers might make you feel good in the moment, but that's not going to help you pay your bills tomorrow. And while you're pointing fingers at somebody else, you're pointing one finger over there, but you got 3 fingers pointing right back at you. And this is where, if you want to break out of this mess, the very first thing you got to do is you got to remember this is that I am responsible for me, and I don't care what happens. It's very easy to blame other people, and I know it can feel good to do that. But if you take responsibility for everything that goes wrong in your life, I know this is extreme. Anything that goes wrong in your life, you're sitting there at a red light and somebody comes and hits you from behind, it's your fault. If you're sitting there and somebody spills water on you, it's your fault for sitting there. If you are willing to take that responsibility for anything that goes wrong in your life, even if you feel like you had nothing to do with it, you were still the person that chose to drove that day. You were still the person that was sitting in that position where the water fell. If you're willing to take responsibility, you're going to be able to get out of the situation that you're in because you have to sometimes take some extreme measures. And that means extreme measures on you if you want to live a completely different life financially. The second thing that you got to do is you got to stop spending all of your money and you got to cut down your spending as fast as possible because your income, your job is your source of fuel. It's your source of money. And if now the way that your system works is money comes in and then it goes out. It's going to your credit card bills, it's going to your housing payments, it's going to your car payments, it's going to your food, it's going to your fun, it's going to your clothes, it's going to your vacations. You have nothing left in the middle. And this is where now, if you want to break out of the system, you got to stop spending money. You got to keep that money for yourself because what happens is when you go out and you spend that money, you're making somebody else rich. When you go out and making your car payments, you're making somebody else rich. When you're going out and you're paying that expensive mortgage, you're making somebody else rich. When you're going out and buying the watch, you're making somebody else rich. When you go on the vacations, you're making somebody else rich. Now, nothing wrong with these things when you can afford them, but if you are in a situation where you can't, or in a situation where you're not happy with your money, you got to stop letting go of your money. Now you might say, but Jaspreet, I'm in a situation where I got a lot of debt I got to pay back. I got a lot of things that I got to kind of get rid of. Then you got to stop spending money on other things. And this sometimes can be difficult. In fact, a lot of times it can be difficult because that means you might have to downsize. You might have to sell that car that you have in your driveway and drive a beat down 2002 Toyota Camry. And that can be tough. Maybe even a 1998 Toyota Corolla, depending on where you are. But you gotta be able to get into a situation where you can keep some of that money for yourself. Maybe you gotta sell some of your watches, maybe you gotta sell some of your clothes, maybe you gotta stop eating at Whole Foods, but there are ways for you to cut back. And once you start cutting back, what you'll notice is some money starts to stay in your bank account. Now, if you have other debts, you got those credit card debts, you got the payday loans, you gotta pay those off aggressively because those things are like shackles. That it's going to make it impossible for you to become wealthy because you'll try to take 2 steps forward, but they're going to pull you right back. And this is where when you have those high interest debts, you got to stop spending money on other things and work to pay down these high interest debts. And what I like to say is if you have credit card debt, you cannot, hear me carefully here, you cannot afford a Netflix subscription. Now this is where everybody says, but Jaspreet, it's only like $15 a month. What do you mean? It's not about the $15 a month. It's about the 2 hours a day that you're spending on Netflix. If you're broke, if you don't have any money in the bank, if you don't have any investments, how can you sit there comfortably sitting there watching Netflix for 2 hours a day? It doesn't make any sense. If you want to get out of the situation, you got to have a little bit of a fire on your you-know-what. And this is where now you got to get rid of the Netflix and use that Netflix time for education time. Read books on financial education. Read books on how to advance in your career. Read books on how to earn more money. Read books on people management. Read books on how to invest your money. Read books on how to be better. And this is where now, if you don't want to read books, you can start listening to podcasts. Use this time to learn. This is your financial education time, not your Netflix time. You can get that Netflix back once you have some money in the bank, once you have some investments, once you have some cash flow coming in. Once you have that, then go get some Netflix. But right now, if you're in that situation, I call it the financial danger zone. If you have credit card debt, if you don't have a couple $1,000s in the bank, you cannot afford a Netflix situation. You should not be sitting there comfortably on the sofa for 2 hours watching Netflix while you got credit card debt piling up. And this is tough. I get that. But if you want to break out of the situation, no one said it was going to be easy, but it will be worthwhile if you make the sacrifices. The third thing you got to do now, once you understand that I'm responsible for me, once you now get serious about not spending your money, the third thing that you got to do is you got to take the money that you're not spending and you got to put it into a place that's going to grow. And what I mean by that is when most people think about, I earned something nice, I earned a new watch, I earned a nice car, what most people think is, I went to work, I got these $10,000, I saved up this 10 grand, I can go out and buy something nice. I can buy myself a nice watch, a nice car because I earned it. I worked so hard to make this extra 10 grand, I deserve something nice. But what wealthy people do is something different. And this is where you gotta listen to me carefully, because what wealthy people do is they do the same thing. I'm working hard. I work hard to save aside this $10,000. But instead of me taking this $10,000 and buying a watch, I'm gonna take this $10,000 and I'm gonna buy an asset. We'll call this asset the middleman. And now this middleman, that asset, is then gonna start to pay you a little bit of money, a very little bit of money. Then you're gonna work hard to make another $10,000. And then while other people buy another watch, they upgrade their car, they go on a vacation, you buy more asset. You do it again, $10,000, more asset. And see, everybody else now, they got the BMW, they got the Rolex, they went to Cancun, they went to Hawaii. All you got are some assets. But now what'll start to happen is your assets start to stack. Now they're starting to make you a little bit more money, a little bit more money, and you stick with this. See, I call this a decade of sacrifice. The decade of sacrifice, if you really want to become wealthy, if you want to be able to have the life that most people dream of, you got to be willing to go through this decade of sacrifice. And that doesn't mean you can't ever enjoy your money. That doesn't mean you can't ever go on a vacation. That doesn't mean you can't ever go out to eat, but you got to be smart here. You got to at least start this investing process. And then as you start to invest more money, this is where you can start to decide, okay, I'm going to ease up a little bit on the gas pedal. Now I'm going to go on a little bit of vacations, but you're still investing your money first. Now think about this. This middleman here, this asset, the reason why you have this is so it can pay you. And so now if you get aggressive with this, what's going to happen is these assets are going to start to pay you a little bit of money. And now if you take this little bit of money that you're making and instead of spending it, you take the money and you reinvest it. Now what's happening is you're working to make money to buy more investments. And your investments are working to make money to buy you more investments. And this is really that secret sauce, which is not that secret, but it takes a lot of discipline. Because that means you got to make money, and instead of spending the money because you feel like you earned it, you deserved it, you dump it back into your investments. And this was the single thing that worked for me. And I don't like to talk about me like this, but I'll give you an example. When I started to make money, the single thing that allowed me to grow my wealth was me not spending my money. When I was making $100,000 a year, my shoes had holes in them. I was living in a tiny apartment where I was paying $400 a month because I didn't have a room. I slept on the living room floor. That way I could use my money to go out and buy more rental properties. When I was making $1 million a year, the first time I made $1 million a year, I was in my 20s. I'm not talking about $1 million in net worth. I mean $1 million coming into my bank account in a year. I took out maybe around $20,000 for myself. The other $980,000 was invested again, either into my business or real estate or something in between. And this is where I wanted to get aggressive, where I understood, guess what? If I made that money, if I have hundreds of thousands of dollars, I can buy a lot of nice things. I deserved it. I wanted it. It was nice. But instead of taking the money and buying myself some nice stuff, I bought some more assets. So the middleman, these assets, could start paying me. And this is that decade of sacrifice. The decade of sacrifice is where you work to earn more and spend less so you can invest like crazy. And if you stick with that, that's going to allow you to break out of the system. But it takes that financial discipline and the sacrifice to not spend your money when everybody else is. You see your friends driving around the nice BMW. You see your friends going on the fancy vacations. You want to be able to do those things too. But instead, what are you doing? Make the money, you drive around the beat down car. You don't have the watch, you don't have the vacations, but you have more investments. And people don't see the investments. I mean, you can see when somebody posts a trip to Hawaii on Instagram. You can see when somebody gets a BMW because they can post it on Facebook. You can see when people have the nice watch because they'll show it off to you. But all you got is the investments. I know, I've been there. But guess what? If you stick with this, soon, it'll take some time, but pretty soon, you'll be able to then go on the longer vacations and not have to worry about the price. You'll be able to have the nicer watch and not have to stress about the price. You'll be able to buy whatever car you want and not even have to worry about the price tag, because these are things that you worked to earn through your investments. It's a completely different game. The average person, most people, the vast majority of people are working to earn money to buy things. I make more money, I buy nicer things. I make more money, I buy more things. But guess what? You're never going to become wealthy like that. And if you want to break out of your system, you got to get into the mindset of, I'm not going to keep doing what everybody else does. There's a reason why this is called the minority mindset. The majority of people are not going to be willing to do this. It's hard. I know. I've been there. But if you stick with it, you're going to be able to live a completely different life. Now, before we get to number 4, I want to let you know on this point, because on May 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm hosting a stock market investing workshop. It's completely free. It's live. It's virtual. You'll be able to ask me questions where I'm going to go over my own stock market investing strategies, how I'm investing my money, especially in 2024 in the stock market. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can actually invest your money in the stock market and build wealth in the stock market, it's a free workshop. I would love for you to join me. I got the link for you down in the description below. So now here's where we are. The first thing you did is you said, I am responsible for me. The second thing you did is you stopped spending all your money. The third thing you did is, instead of spending your money, now you're taking this money and you're buying the middleman. You're buying the assets. What are these assets? Stocks, real estate. Now, the first thing that you got to do, if you want to amplify this, is you got to work to earn more money. And this one seems simple, but the reason why you're working to earn more money isn't to have a nicer car. It isn't to go on more vacations. It isn't to have a better watch. It's so you can have more investments. And this one is tough, because I want you to imagine this right now. Think about this. You're making, I don't know, $60,000 a year, hypothetically. But now let's assume that tomorrow your boss tells you that you're going to get a raise from $60,000 a year to $120,000 a year. What do? Most people will say, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, I got to tell my wife. We got to get a new house. We got to get a new car. We got to get some new stuff. Because now we start to inflate our lifestyle when we inflate our incomes. But the fastest way to become wealthy is to earn more money, but increase your investments faster than you inflate your lifestyle. Now, there's a few ways to do this. The first way you do this is, when you get that raise, don't increase your lifestyle for 12 months. The next time you get a raise, then you increase it by a little bit. But the first time you don't do anything. The other way to do it is, as you earn more money, you spend a little bit more money. But this is where now what you got to do is, you understand, okay, I'm going to work to earn more money. I'm not going to spend all the new money that I earn. But how do I earn more money? Because, well, there's a lot of money in the world. And many times we get caught up into this game of thinking that we're in this box, and there's really a limit to how big of a raise that we can get. There's a limit to how much money I can earn tomorrow. I can't double my income in a year. I can't double my income in 5 years. But the reality is, most people, 90 to 95, if not 98% of people, have the ability to double their income in the next 5 years. But that's going to require work. That's going to require you investing in your income. Yeah, that probably will require you getting a new job, maybe a new career, maybe getting a certificate, maybe investing in your business. But you have to be able to invest in your skills if you want to be able to earn more money. And I don't care what your background is. I don't care if you have a degree or what your degree is in. I don't care about the way you look. If you can possess a value that an employer is willing to pay for, you can earn money. And if you possess a value that employers will pay more money for, you can make even more money. Now, how do you learn that? There's a lot of ways to do this. The internet has really changed the game here. There are a lot of places online. Yes, you're going to have to invest some money. Okay, let me be honest with you. You got to invest some money. You got to invest some time. Some of these programs are a few $1,000s. Some of these programs are a few $100s. But guess what? If you can get a new certificate in a new career, you spend a couple of years learning it, mastering it, getting some experience in it, well then you'll be able to jump from 60 grand a year to $95,000 a year in a couple of years. It takes work, it takes time, but if you're willing to put in the work, you'll be able to earn more money. But remember what I said before. Why are you working to earn more money? Is so you can invest more money. And the reason why a lot of people don't do this is because, well, it's daunting, it's expensive, it's hard, my weekends, my evenings, my holidays. But listen, you gotta make that sacrifice for a little while. That way you can have the future weekends off. That way you have the future evenings off. Otherwise, you just kind of stay miserable forever. But if you put in the extra hustle for a few years, you can have the rest of your life to have more freedom, to have more flexibility. But you got to be willing to put in the sacrifice today. And this brings me now to number 5, which is as you start to see the returns of your investments, this is where you got to make that decision. Now, as investments start to make you money, in the beginning, you're going to want to reinvest that income. But eventually, you're going to be able to make that decision of, okay, you know what? Instead of me reinvesting the money that I make, maybe I use some of this money. And this is where now you can start to increase your lifestyle. This is where now you can start buying the nicer things. This is where now you can start doing the more lavish and luxury stuff without having to worry about the price, because your investments are paying for them. And I can't tell you how freeing that is, because when you have to work to get paid, and even if it's your own business, guess what? You're still working, right? I own Briefs Media. I started Briefs Media. I am the CEO of Briefs Media. We have a team of people that work in Briefs Media, but I got to work in that company. Okay, I get a salary. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time, but I also own rental properties. I also own dividend-paying stocks. And those checks that come in are a lot easier because I took that money, I bought these assets, and these assets continue to pay me. The money I work in my business, I love what I do with Briefs Media, right? So for me, it's enjoyable, but it takes a lot of work. And for me to get paid in the business is a lot harder than me getting paid for my investments. Now, of course, it's hard to take that money, put it aside, and then buy the investments. But that's where now you're going to be able to get that cash flow. You'll be able to build the investments that can pay you, that you can use to build your wealth and buy nicer things, because now this money that's coming in, you don't feel as bad spending it, because that's the way the wealth works. You own the asset, you spend the money, more money comes in next month. And this is where now if you want to spend more money and not have to worry about it, if you're spending the money that your investments are spitting off to you, well, now that's money that you can go out and buy more luxury things and not have to worry about the price, because the money is coming from investments instead of your labor. There are 2 different types of statements that you want to look at: 10Ks and 10Qs. 10Qs are your quarterly financial statements. Your 10Ks are your annual financial statements. What you want to look for are 3 different things: the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement. These are the 3 main financial statements that every publicly traded company, every stock in the stock market has to publish.